Okay. Hi, I'm Ray, and we are probably streaming blacksmithing. I am so sorry for the instability that's been going on. My OBS and my internet are not playing nice together. Hopefully because like it looks like I'm stable now. I did a speed test. I did a couple speed tests, and I have plenty of internet connection between the laptop and the internet itself. But I don't know. Maybe I need to or like update OBS or something like that. I'm not entirely sure. It seems to be stable for the moment. Hopefully, it will stay that way. So welcome in Mahalo and Ping. Thank you so much for sticking with me. Um, yay. Looks smoother now. Excellent. I'm really glad that it's a lot smoother now. It seems like it's evening out a little bit. Hopefully that was just like a little drop for whatever reason in the area. Um, so we are back in the shop. You know what? I forgot to turn or open the garage door. Let me do that real fast. Um, so yeah, we are back in the shop after almost a week away. I was a little bit too tired and recovering a little bit from the trip that we took this last weekend. We went to the BAM conference and I had a blast. It was so much fun going. I met so many different people and we saw all kinds of different sites and tools and demonstrations. It was so much fun. The first video for the VOD, typically, I usually do or upload the Friday VOD on a Monday, and so that is up. I have started editing all of the footage that we shot within the uh, the conference, and I've got the first video. It's it's got or I've got a rough edit of the first video, so there's a couple things that I need to tweak here and there. I need to switch a little bit of sound here and there because I'm using in-camera sound and the current edit, and I got to put the mic sound in and stuff. A couple other things that I need to get done, and just like tweak here and there, put some B-roll. And then we will have that video up for you guys on Wednesday. So today's video is the video where I show you how to make this guy. This guy right here is a drift. And this guy has a lot in common with a punch, right? So this is just a regular cold punch, and we can make some pretty nice holes with this guy. You've seen me make holes in sets of tongs like these for rivets and things like that. Well, so this is what we used, right? Well, if I use this guy has a chisel on the end instead of that round bit there, and so it actually stretches out a little slit, and we can make a hole just about any size that we want. So today we're actually going to use this this drift, um, and we're going to put a hole in these two pieces of stock. Now, I'm not sure if we're going to get both of them done in the same day, but we're going to do our best and we're going to try and see how it works or see how it goes. This is the first time I'm going to use this guy right here. This is a test tube holder, and I'm going to use it to kind of hold the drift in place so that I don't have to use my hands. In the past, I have quite frequently hammered my hand while holding punches and trying to make holes in steel. So I'm gonna try using this guy this time, and hopefully we can, avoid hammering our hands for a while. Um, Hopefully you guys can hear me all right. I kind of have a different lav mic setup for the moment. I'm using the same one we used at the conference where I have like a little lav mic that kind of sits in my collar, and then the actual lav mic that I normally have sitting here is in my pocket. So hopefully you guys can hear me. I'm pretty sure you can because I looked through the VOD sound on the other camera and or like the other VOD, and it seemed to work pretty well. So hopefully you guys can hear. So today, like I said, we're going to be using our drift to punch holes in these two pieces of stock. And why we're making these holes is because we're going to start working on our H, right? So we've got two straights and a cross. And our cross is a lot bigger in width than our uprights. So you can kind of see we've got a 5/8 inch piece of stock for the cross, and then this is a 1/4 inch piece of stock. So what we're going to try and do is use our drift to expand the hole bigger than our uprights. So it's going to have like a little a round circle in the middle. And we are going to kind of draw down this material into, or so that it'll slot right into that hole that we make with our drift. So this is a process that is called mortise and tenons, right? So basically we're going to create um, uh, rivets that are actually attached to the centerpiece. So instead of creating two heads, we're going to have like the center, and then we're going to hammer on the other end to close the rivet. So that's kind of the plan today. Mic volume seems a little lower than usual, but we can hear fine. Let me raise the volume a little bit. Windows updates are notorious for resetting audio for no reason. Yeah. Let me see. I can probably raise the volume just a little bit here. Let me know if that's too much. It looks like my volume, like my levels are kind of lagging a little bit, so hopefully it's not too terrible for that. So we've got an ad going right now. And so once that ad is done, we are going to start up the forge and start heating up our two posts for our H. And that's the letter that we're working on today is H. I've decided that I'm going to put up the T and the Y for the moment, and we're going to work on the H. Give ourselves a fresh start when on our way, our first day back in the shop. And then later on, we'll continue working on like kind of redoing the T and kind of cleaning up the Y a little bit. I just want to, I don't know, I just want a fresh start for the moment. I've been kind of struggling all week last week with the rest of those two letters. So I just, let's start fresh, and we're back in the shop and raring to go. So I think that's what we're gonna do today. So yeah, and I have to admit that I have not updated the end screen for the stream. So when the outro plays, it'll have like the really long list of everyone, but it's missing two people. And then so when I logged in today, I'm gonna give people a little bit of leeway before I take them off of that screen. So I have not updated that screen yet, but it will happen. Okay. The ad is done now, so let's start up the forge. I have a brand new can of propane. I don't want to close this door, but I want it to be like so I can actually see it. So I have a brand new can of propane, and I am starting it for the first time. I need to make sure that it is open or it's not leaking. Seems like it's all right. I had a little bit of an issue earlier today when I was trying to change the two tanks. The previous one had like a leak, and so I had a really bad propane leak, and I had to like really clear out all the air in the shop. It's clear now. There's no more lingering propane around, so we should be all right. But it is always important to pay very close attention to your propane. Make sure that you don't have lingering clouds of it everywhere. Especially before you light a forge like this. Alright. I'm going to open this door because it has closed itself. I need lots and lots of ventilation. Alright. So I'm going to stick this guy in the forge and we're going to start heating it up. But before we do that, let me show you what I've done with this guy. So I've actually put a mark right there with a center punch, so we can kind of we can drop our stuff. Anyway, so that way we can kind of find the center or when we go in with the drift. So I've got a center punch mark right there, and then I also have a center punch mark right there, and they are even on these two bars. Okay, so we're gonna put this in the forge. Or first I'm gonna move around this brick a little bit. Alright, should be fine now. There we go. Now that guy can heat up. So these guys, I'm going to move them over here. That way they're, we have them at hand, but we don't really have to they're not in our way. Headphones so I can hear myself. Awesome. Let's see. All right, so we have our anvil relatively set up. I've got a pair of tongs. I've got my my holder. I've got my drift and my metal, or cold metal hammer. So we should be good to go. Once that heats up, we should be able to start drifting out that hole. So let's see. Like I said, I am working on doing some edits for the YouTube from our weekend conference. We had so much fun on Friday going around and talking to all of the vendors and looking and seeing what was going on at the conference. And so I actually did a little bit more walking around like later on that day, as well as the next day on Saturday. And so I actually did a few interviews with some pretty important people. So our first video for next Wednesday, like a week from today, is I got to talk to the president of the BAM organization, and then I also got to talk to the secretary of the Havana organization. So, as I've explained before, BAM is the Blacksmith Association of Missouri, and then Havana stands for Artist Blacksmith Association of North America. And so I got to talk to those guys, and they were amazing, and they told me all about BAM and Havana and what their organizations are all about. So I've got their interview coming for you guys a week from today. And then I also have a few other videos, interviews from different vendors and presenters that I talked to during the conference. So I have I have the main presenter or an interview, and that will be coming the week after next, and we'll start editing that probably tomorrow a little bit. But yeah, I'm really excited to share all of that footage with you guys. And then I will also be adding in a few of the videos from what we do here on stream and some of my prep work that I do or between streams. And we'll add that to our YouTube channel as well. So I'm actually looking forward to the next few weeks. I've kind of been thinking about what we can do with the stream as well as the YouTube channel. I think that it would be really fun to do a few more field trips every once in a while. I really love what we've got here in my shop, and I don't want to stop this, but I think some field trips might be fun here and there. So the next one that I'm hoping that I can get organized is in the fall, and there is a conference called SOFA, and that one is the Southern Ohio Orgy, I think, association. So that one might be fun to do too. I'm not sure if I can manage to get out there, but we will do our best. So I hope you guys, would like to see more conferences interspersed in between, the work that we do here, so we can kind of hang out and, talk about blacksmithing, answer questions, and then, ask some of our own questions. So that's kind of, I'd like to do a few more of those. I think it went pretty well. I was actually really impressed by how well the phone worked for the event. Nobody said that it was like unstable or anything, and when I looked at the bot, it looked pretty clean and smooth. So I was really impressed by that. So hopefully, we can keep on going with that. But I mean, seriously, I feel like Friday's stream was a lot smoother than a lot of the other streams that we've been doing recently here at the home shop. So, yeah. So I need to wait for that center of the bar to kind of get a little bit or a little bit more heat up the bar so that we can get a good amount of heat to stretch that hole at in the center of the bar. I know farrier work is more adjacent to blacksmithing, but it would be fun to go along a shoeing trip. That would be really fun. I don't know, or I don't personally know any farriers, but I know that there are a few farrier businesses around here because I live in the outskirts or I'm kind of like on the outskirts of the city, but also like somewhere between cities and farming areas. And I have seen a few farrier or advertisements for farriers. So, I mean, that could be something that we could, see about. There is a couple different farriers in the area, I believe. I think there's one in this town called Highland that isn't too terribly far away. I mean, maybe, I could probably, give them a call and we'll see if we can't set something up at some point. But yeah, I don't really do a lot of farrier work myself, mostly because farrier is kind of it's like halfway between veterinarian and blacksmith, right? So there is a lot of blacksmithing involved in farriering where you have to like actually, make the horseshoes themselves, but you also have to kind of have a lot of veterinary knowledge about horses and like how to fix things like, splinters and do minor surgeries and, that sort of thing, which is very different from blacksmithing. I'm not really good with like blood and gore, and there you never know what you're coming across when you've got when you go to a farm and take a look at some of that stuff. I have seen some videos of some interesting things with berry. I think a lot of them nowadays, and I'm not sure about our local ones, but a lot of them are actually using epoxy for their horseshoes. So they'll give they have like these plastic horseshoes, and they kind of affix them with like a two-part epoxy. So there's less metal and blacksmithing involved than there used to be. This is kind of more of a recent development. So I mean, there might be some farriers that still do the blacksmithing portions around, but I'll take a look and see what I can find. Yeah, it's very specific. I mean, it is. It's pretty specific. All right, how much heat we got? We're getting there. We've got a little bit more heat. It's moved a little bit closer towards the end of the bar. Like I said, I need to wait until I've got enough heat in that center because the more heat I have there, the easier it's going to stretch that material out, and the less likely it's going to crack. Part of the reason that you want to make sure that it's really good and hot when you're using a drift is because as it stretches around the drift itself, um, it will, or there's always a chance that it will crack or rip the piece of steel. So you want to make sure that you've got a really nice even heat on there, and all of the material is stretching the same amount. So we'll see if I can make this happen. Like I said, I marked the center of these bars with the center punch, and that way, even if there's like even if I get like scale or something on there, I should be able to find those marks, and it should make it a lot easier for me to center that punch up and make that hole. All right. Let's see about making this happen. I want to true up my drift so that I know exactly where the little chisel end is. So I'm going to put that there, and then I am going to start up my recording. Alrighty. Okay. We'll do that, and then I will see about, let's put myself over the horn of the anvil. See how that works. So I'm looking for that center punch mark, and it's right there. And after every heat or every hammer mark, I want to move that punch to make sure that it maintains its central location. You can kind of see right there where I've kind of started that slit. It was a little bit cold when I started, so I'm going to heat this back up, and then we should be ready to go. All right. Good evening. lurking. Apologies. Been lurking. What sort of, or well, some sorting stuff out. I'll be back in the forge on Saturday. Can't wait. How was the trip and how are things? Welcome, Fenris. Welcome, Yankee. I had a blast at the conference on Friday and Saturday. I was there. I spent a good, I don't know, probably between 8 and 12 hours at the conference over those 2 days. That is a lot of blacksmithing for me in 2 days. So that is why I took Monday off. I was a little bit on the tired side. But I have so much amazing footage for you guys to check out. And like I said, those will be up on Wednesdays in the next coming week. So keep an eye out for those. Today, I actually posted a video of me making the drift that we are currently using. We are making our H for our raised smithy sign. And so right now we're drifting holes in the uprights so that we can kind of do mortise and tenons. And it's kind of like wooden chairs, you know, how you've got the horizontal braces. And if you were to take those horizontal braces out of the legs of like your chair, you kind of see where there's like a little miter bit where it's like a little cylinder and it kind of goes in the hole where the leg is. And that's called a mortise, or like a tenon, a mortise and tenon. So that's kind of what we're making, only in metal. So what I have, when we do that central piece for the H, what we're going to do is we're going to draw this area down so that we can kind of make that tenon shape and then rivet it to the legs. And then we'll put it up on the wall with the rest of the letters. So yeah, I've been actually, you know, I had a lot of fun over the weekend. And I talked to a lot of people, and we got some interviews, and I talked to some vendors. So next week's video is going to be all about the conference and BAM and Abana. And then the week after that, I have an interview that I did with the main demo, the main speaker of the conference. And after that, I have several different videos where I talk to different vendors. And so I think I want to frame those videos in like, you know, acquiring good tools and like what sorts of upgrades that you can make to your shop after you have, you know, put in that initial like few, you know, 50 to 75, $80 for your like initial step when you're trying to go another step up in your tools to make things a little bit easier and to get, you know, prettier tools. So I think that's what I'm going to frame those videos about. And I mean, everyone that I talked to was they were so kind and knowledgeable, and I had so much fun. So I'm so glad that I got to go. But yeah, I got to talk to a guy who sells handmade hammers. And they're absolutely gorgeous. He does all hickory handles, and he likes to put a heartwood wedge in the tops of every single one. So they're all hand done. Doesn't even have a power hammer, but we do that, or he does them. I believe he probably has a press, but he does them all by hand. They're absolutely gorgeous. I talked to a leather worker about custom leather aprons. I talked to a foundry, like a guy who owns a foundry, and he does custom anvils. So like you can order an anvil of almost any size, and they'll put it together and they'll cast it at his foundry and then send it out to you. He was amazing. Holland anvils. He said they were $7 a pound, and that's for brand new. So if you're looking at a used anvil, you know, $7 a pound, you can get a brand new one. So, you know, something to think about. Let's see. There was a lot of shopping to do, and I am proud to admit that I only spent $15 in the shop. I bought myself a shirt from the conference. I almost spent $100 on a forge. I was checking it out. It was a little bit bigger than a rivet forge, and I almost bought it. The guy really wanted to sell it to me, but I just didn't have $100 at the time. So we got a shirt. We got a shirt. Shipping costs in the UK are probably a bit prohibitive, though. I mean, they probably are. I don't know. I didn't really talk to him about shipping international because it was a US based conference. I do know that he does have, he has shipped up to Alaska, and that's kind of quite a lot of logistics nightmares too. So I mean, you never know. But I mean, over in Europe, there are a lot of anvils out there, you know, that you can find the used ones, you know. Do the custom anvils come with a hardened top plate? Do they install anything else onto the casting? As far as, okay, so Holland anvils, what they do is they cast the anvils in steel. So like it's kind of like it's like cast in tool steel. They have the facilities to like melt the steel alloys or like the hardened. It's kind of like a, you know, it's a hardened, like the whole anvil is hardened. Like my anvil, it only has that hardened plate, and you know you can tell that because the plate has broken off. But these anvils are solid tool steel, so there's nothing affixed to them. The whole thing is tool steel, and then they also sell uh, swage blocks like the one I have over there, and those are actually in cast iron because they just don't take as much punishment as the anvils themselves. Oh, I see. Nice. Yes. All right, I'm gonna do another heat. We're gonna put me over top of the horn. So yeah, and I'm gonna do an entire video on Holland Anvil, you know, that way you guys can, you know, take an educated guess on that. I'm looking for that center punch mark. It's right there. I found it, and then I dropped my hammer. Awesome. At least I think I found it. Did I find it? It's right there. Wow. Come on. Goodness gracious. Struggles. This is what I get for leaving the shop for a whole week, man. Okay, so you can kind of see where I've started to create that slot. And as we continue through this material, it's going to stretch all of the rest of this around, or I mean, around the whole piece. Looks like it's a little bit thin on this side, so we're probably going to focus a little bit on that side to kind of make sure that the whole stretches evenly. Raw. Do you want me to post a link to the anvil place? If you'd like to, yeah. Maybe in the Discord, yeah. The floor has a big magnet on it. Every tool moving in that direction. I mean, yes, exactly. So yeah, like I said, Holland Anvil, they are great. They cast brand new anvils out of tool steel, and they were really kind. And they really knowledgeable and stuff. So yeah, Ping, if you have the link to their website, we can post that in the Discord so that you guys can find that. There is like, I think there's like a tailgate section in that Discord, and that'd probably be a decent place to put it. But yeah, I am constantly dropping my tools all over the ground for whatever reason. Really though, it's because um, I bought this guy because I thought it would be really, really good to hold on to the drift with. And it really is, to be quite honest. My only issue is that I keep holding it like this, and I need to hold it like this. Because when I hold it like this, then I end up squeezing these guys, and then it just doesn't hold it as securely. But if I were to hold it like, like this maybe, it would hold it a little bit better because I wouldn't be squeezing it and the spring wouldn't be opening and closing. So it looks like we are going to start an ad here shortly. The drift seems to be holding up pretty good. I was a little bit concerned because I made this drift out of mild steel, which is not a tool steel. It's a relatively soft tool steel, or I mean a relatively soft steel. Um, so I wasn't sure if I made that initial tip a little bit too thin, or so that it would move. I think that it's holding up pretty well, but it only needs to hold up for 2 holes, and that's kind of why I make them. I make them fresh for each hole that I want to make. Um, if I want to make more than a couple holes with a drift, I will make it out of tool steel. But this time I only made it out of mild, so because like I said, I only need 2 holes out of the whole thing. New project, making locking tongs to hold drifts and punches. I mean, yes, that would be amazing, and I definitely need to do that. So another vendor that I actually talked to at the show last weekend was blacksmith.com, and I think I streamed that interview. But they also have the locking tongs with the little, like, the ring that closes the tongs securely at the end. Um, so those are beautiful tongs, and I love the locks that they have. It looks like I have about 30 seconds left in the timer on the ad. So let me take a look at the steel. I think we're in a good place with that. Um, Once that the ad timer ticks all the way down, I will do another heat. I do need to check my clips real fast just to make sure that I'm not over my time. And since I'm here, I'm just going to refresh them because, I mean, I might as well, right? That way they come out a little bit easier, or pull down a little easier into my hard drive later on. Okay. What was I thinking? I was thinking about something. The thing I was thinking of was, thank you, Electric Rose, so much for the follow. Welcome to the community. We're really glad to have you. Um, yeah, so thank you for the follow. When you showed those locking tongs at the BAM meeting, I thought that was really slick. I mean, it definitely is. I think that it would be really cool too if I made a set of tongs specifically for the punches and things, where maybe instead of having like the little, the grabby section this direction, maybe I actually make it so that the grabby section is like this. I mean, that's probably gonna work pretty well. Just enough tension in the handles to bind the latch hook. Yes, exactly. And part of the reason why they work that way is because their reins are so thin um, that they actually bend quite a bit. Our reins are really thick. The ones that I've been making lately, they've been relatively thick, so they don't actually bend all that much. So if we make another set, we'll have to think specifically about thinning down the reins a little bit further than I have ordinarily or lately. All right, let's do another heat. I think someone is doing like some yard work or something out there. I feel like I hear a weed whacker. I don't think you guys can hear it, but I sure can. All right. I flipped it 90 degrees. There we go. And that hole is actually starting to get more central. If I can roll this properly, it would be amazing. There we go. Alrighty. Drop him adrift again. So you can kind of see that hole starting to form. It's doing pretty well actually. I do kind of want to take a little bit of time to straighten it out because it's starting to bow a little bit. So I straighten it out and we can see that that hole is still there. We'll heat that back up again. The drift itself is actually starting to heat up a little bit as well. Just you and the forge, yes. Man, it is good to be back in the shop. I had so much fun last weekend, but I really, honestly, I missed being out here with you guys. Just me and you. We're starting to get a little bit of bending this direction. It shouldn't be an issue, but there is a little bit of rolling happening. So if I straighten it out just a little bit, it should be fine. But like I said, it is kind of the detriment of using mild steel as opposed to tool steel for a drift like this. But yeah, I really miss being in the shop and, just being out here. It's very zen. Just thinking about what I need to do and, making sure that it happens. So yeah, but I'm really glad to be back. We are here. We are making progress. So let's see, what else or who else did I talk to? Like I said, I almost came home with a rivet forge. It was a little bit bigger than a normal rivet forge. A normal rivet forge is about yay big around, and basically it's just like a round pan, and then there's a central area where the airflow comes up, and there's a clinker breaker. And this one actually had, or it was like round on one side, and then on the opposite side, it was squared off. So it was a little bit longer, and it was a really, really nice forge. It had really good guts in the legs. It actually had a built-in blower on it, and it had a crank on it that was turned by a belt, and then they had like a lever on it. It was beautiful. It needed a little bit of love and care, to kind of bring, or because it was missing its belt, and then the handle on the pump had broken off. So I just, honestly, I would have taken it home if I had the time and energy to kind of fix it up. Because like I said, the guy wanted $100 for it. And honestly, if I had put a little, or if I had put $20 into making a new belt for it and getting a new handle for that pump, I could have sold it for $200 and doubled my money. So that honestly is a thing that I'm thinking about doing. It's kind of a back of the brain thing that I kind of want to do some planning for. I would love to do a little, I would like to buy a piece of blacksmithing equipment that maybe needs a little bit of, elbow grease, and maybe take it and bring it on stream, and we'll see what we can do to repair it. And then maybe we'll, sell it off to someone who needs it. I think that would be a really interesting thing to do. No spoilers if you're making a video about it later, but did you see any more of the smelting process? I saw a little bit about it, but unfortunately, like, I didn't make it to the, okay, so the guys that were doing smelting, they got there ridiculously early in the morning, and you kind of have to do that because it's an all-day process. You start like at 6 or 5 or 6 in the morning. You set up your crucible and like what your the sand in the pot, and you kind of build your forge around it, and then you have to watch it all day. So unfortunately, I didn't make it to the conference on Saturday until about 9 a.m. I did actually see that they were adding some Coke to it while I was there, and so I do have some B-roll of that. But unfortunately, I didn't get to talk to them, and I didn't get to see them set it up. So I've got a little bit of footage of it, but not anything substantial. So if there is another place that I know of that can do that sort of technique, and that is the International Metals Museum in Memphis, Tennessee, and they do it at least 2 times a year. So I have I have a bunch of friends that work there, and I would love to get out there and see about filming an iron pour. So I'll see if I can't get that together. But yeah, unfortunately I was unable to get like the beginning and the end footage from that. Yeah, lots of setup time with that. Yeah, unfortunately there is. When they do the iron pours at the Metals Museum, it's an all-day thing. You start out way early in the morning, and you actually you start like a couple days prior, because they're doing in Memphis, they're doing like an actual liquid pour, whereas or at the conference they were doing more of a it was liquid, but they weren't really pouring it per se. They were kind of like just refining it. So that's a slightly different process. But yeah, you start the Metals Museum. They start about a week in advance making molds that they are pouring the liquid metal into. And I will definitely take you the next time I get out there, because that is a blast to watch. All right, I'm going to do another heat. And I kind of feel like, talking about it is one thing, but seeing it is a completely different thing. I really would like to show, not tell, that process if I can manage it sometime. All right. I'm pretty happy with that, actually. We're getting a lot of good work in there. You can kind of see that hole starting to form. It's a nice slot like that. You can see that the material is being pushed in the, horizontally around. So that slot is slowly going to turn into a circle. So once again, I want to straighten this out a little bit so that it doesn't end up stretching in weird ways, but we'll heat that up again and we'll see what we can do some more. But yeah, I would absolutely love to take you to the Metals Museum. That is a place I definitely want to get to. And I kind of feel like it's not fair talking about it without showing you it. Um, so I really want to show, like, all my friends, really. Let's see. What else did we do this weekend? Man, we did lots of stuff. We got there around 1:30, and that, well, I guess we got there around 1 because I started the stream a little bit, or I just a little bit earlier than I normally would, didn't I? Um, so yeah, we got there just after we ate lunch, and then we went around with you guys, and it was kind of pretty, or it was pretty cool, actually. Also, they actually had a second room that we didn't find out about until the second day. There was a whole second area where they were doing, or they had a museum set up. So we got a lot of shots of all of the different pieces in the museum. We did like a little beauty shot of every single thing within the museum. So I've got a few B-roll shots in next week's video, and I'll probably add a few here and there as I subsequently make more videos. But there were some really pretty pieces at that show. The Metals Museum would be a fun trip. Cool. Yeah, so the Metals Museum actually has 2 events that they do every year. In the fall, they do repair days, and then in the spring every year they do a uh, a blacksmithing like class, I guess. It's like an intensive class with a European master blacksmith. I've attended both in years past, but I was unable to attend both the BAM conference and the Metals Museum's class. So we'll see if I can manage to make it, because like I don't think that I can do both SOFA and the repair days. Um, so I'll see about getting one or the other. I don't think I can manage both, but I will definitely take you guys with me for whichever one I get to. But yeah, if I can't go to repair days in the fall, I'll try and see if I can't do the blacksmithing conference in like next spring, and bring you guys with me. Our field trips are probably going to be a little bit sparse for a while because we've got to recover our funds a little bit. Hotels cost money. All right, let's do another heat. We're actually kind of cooking on this hole. I'm hoping that we can get the whole thing done in one day. There we go. There's that. starting to stretch a little bit further on this side than this side. So I think I'm going to try and reposition the drift a little bit as we keep going here. Because the last thing I want to do is have an uneven stretch. Because then we'll have like a weird bulge on this side and not on that side. So we'll see what I can do about that in, you know, a couple heats. If I angle it, it should fix it. Oh, come on. All right, like I said, we're having a little trouble. It's starting to bend a little bit, and that's because it's heating up. So I'm gonna maybe start using a little bit of the oil. So we'll put that there, and it should cool it down a little bit. Water would probably be better for this, so I don't know. Maybe instead of oil, we'll use the quench bucket. So for mild steel, which is, you know, it's low carbon steel, it can't really be hardened. But the best way to, quote, harden a mild steel thing is just by using regular water. It's going to harden it as much as it possibly can be hardened, but it's still not going to harden much. But, you know, best practice, I guess. It seems like we're actually doing pretty well as far as stable or being stable on the stream or with OBS. Like I said, I'm not entirely sure why it was so unstable earlier because I had plenty of internet. So I'm glad that it's finally decided it's gonna, or like OBS has finally decided it's gonna talk to Twitch. And now that I've said that, it'll probably, you know, start going crazy again. Because that's what it kind of does. So yeah. I think I might actually turn the piece of steel on our next heat. And part of that is so that there's the little bend here. It'll kind of even out the weird bend and stretching that's going on. So if I turn it so that the fat side is closer to the cameras, it should even out because that thin section was the closer to the camera side. So if I gotta pay attention. So, you know, spinning it around, it'll keep it even. But we're making really good progress. We've only been streaming for about an hour and we're about halfway through. So I'm pretty happy with that. We do have a much skinnier piece of stock that we're working with than we normally work with. So, you know, that's going to help quite a lot. But overall, we're making good progress. I'm pretty happy. Got to keep everything all nice and hot and make sure that everything stretches evenly and all of that heat gets soaked in there so it can move properly. So make sure this guy isn't gonna like jiggle around in there at all. Yeah, I'll move it like that. That'll work. That'll work beautifully. Like I said, this drift is a temporary drift, so any movement and stuff, it's not terrible. If you're doing lots and lots of the same hole, you definitely want to do a version of it in tool steel, but this is mild steel. All right, we're gonna do another heat. I know I don't really want to say this because you know the second I say it, it's gonna change. But my forge is actually cooperating relatively nicely today. I'm actually pretty happy about that. Now let's spin this guy around a little bit. Spin it around this way now. It jumped and hit me in the finger, but that's all right. Didn't even singe the flesh. All right. So we've got a good amount of that going there. I think that we are at this point going to end up with an uneven stretch. I don't know that I can repair that at this point. Well, I will do my best to kind of fix that a little bit, but we might have a little bit of bulge on that side. It's very, very important to keep your punches centered in line with the rest of your piece. And unfortunately, I haven't quite done that today. So I don't know. Yeah. Part of it is, I don't know. I haven't done this in a while, so that's probably why why I've done it. Or maybe I just wasn't paying as close of attention when I was doing those initial few heats. Maybe. But yeah, it's gonna look a little bit awkward towards the end because, like I said, it's going to stretch a little bit odd. We're gonna have a little bit of extra material on one side than the other. I will do my very best to make sure that the other side goes a little bit easier and is more centered. That way it works a little bit easier. Or, I mean, it stretches more evenly. Yep. But overall, I think we'll be all right. It won't be too terribly noticeable because it will be on the side of it and not the. We won't be looking straight on at it. We'll be looking at the side. If I were, going to be selling this piece or giving it away or whatever, or if it was going to leave my shop, I would trash this one and start fresh. But I think it'll be okay because it's just going up on the wall for the moment. Do your camera clips need reset at 1 hour? They actually need reset at 30 minutes. I think I'll be all right. Welcome, Christy. I will. I actually reset my clips not that long, or about 26 minutes ago. So it'll be all right. We'll refresh them now, and that'll work. Thanks for reminding me, though. I definitely needed to refresh the clips because, like I said, at 30 minutes exactly, the close-up cam stopped recording. So, yeah. So yes, welcome in. We are currently using a drift to punch a hole. And what we're doing is we're working on an H. So we've got two uprights. So these are 1/4 inch stock, and then we have a horizontal, which is a 5/8 inch piece of square stock. And those are all imperial standard measurements. Unfortunately, you know, I one of these days I need to actually go and do the math and just have them like maybe write it down and like you know on a piece of paper on the wall or something with metric um, conversions. But in order to put this in between two of these guys and rivet them in, I kind of have to stretch these guys wider than the 1/4 inch that I have here. And so what we're going to, how we're doing that is we're using a drift. And we're going to kind of slowly stretch all of our material around this guy. We're going to shove it all the way through to get that nice even circle in there. And then we are going to rivet these guys into an H shape. And hopefully it all works out for us. Hopefully. It would be nice to have, you know, the first thing that I do in the shop after coming home work out for me. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But that's kind of live, so, you know. Thank you so much, Ping, for banning that bot. Quick draw on that. I didn't even notice we had a bot in chat and it was already banned. Good job. Alright, so we just ended our ads, I believe. Yes, we did. Yes, Tips had. Alright, so we just ended that round of ads, so I am going to do another heat, and we'll see where that leads us. Alright. Of course. Of course. Maybe that leads us to, you know, making a mess and not having our stuff set up. We got it. We'll get it. We'll get it. All right, we are starting to get to the point where we're going to have to move this guy from the face of the anvil over to the pritchel hole over here, because we're getting really close to the end. You can see it's kind of stretched already. So I think for our next heat, we're actually going to move the whole process over here to the pritchel hole, so that way we can kind of shove this guy all the way through. We're getting there. Yeah. Good progress. Keep that guy cool so it doesn't move as much. Yeah. All right. I was thinking about something and I forgot what it was. What was I thinking about? I had something and I really wanted to talk about it and now I lost it. That's the best, right? When you forget what you were about to talk about? Let's see. I feel like I was pulling the steel out of the forge as I was thinking about this thing. I'm trying to remember what it was, though. I don't remember. Why don't I remember? I don't even know. Well, if it was important, I'll remember it later. All right. But yeah, we are making really great progress on this piece. And we're kind of making a buttonhole in the piece. And I've shown you the little square slot that we're getting as we're shoving this drift all the way through. So this drift should actually go. Yes, it does. It does go all the way through the Pritchett hole. So that way, I've made this so that it'll go all the way through that Pritchett hole and out the other side. And that's so that, when it happens, I don't like run immediately into the face of the anvil. So I don't gouge up the face of the anvil and I don't wreck my punch. Let's make sure that we, make sure our anvil is all set up. It is very important to set up your anvil so that everything is at hand as you are, working. That way you don't lose as much heat. I still can't figure out what that other thing I was going to do or what I was going to say was. I don't know, man. Like I said, I have a brand new tank of gas, so I shouldn't ever have to worry about that today. What else are we worrying about today? I don't know. Everything seems to be going pretty well, except for that the slot is a little bit off center. That is the only thing that is not going my way today. That's pretty impressive for me. Alright, let's do another heat. We're going to move our whole stuffy over, or our whole process over here so that we can make sure that we can get all the way through if we need to. Though this does guarantee that our piece is going to bend a bit as we're doing this. Alright, so we've got a lot of heat going on there, and eventually we will get a lot of heat. It's going to detemper. I mean, if this were tool steel, it would detemper this tip, and that's because the tip is gaining a lot of heat since it's going all the way through there. We are going to straighten this out a little bit still. You can kind of see that slot growing there. We've got that nice square, and it is starting to push out those cheeks. And in the next couple of heats, it should go all the way through. Let's see. So I'm thinking that this is probably going to take two streams to do the entirety of the H. We will probably finish, I'm planning on finishing this leg today, expanding that hole and putting the drift all the way through. And then I think we might be able to start the second leg. But I'm pretty sure that I won't have time to do both legs and create the central, the horizontal area of the H. So I'm planning on this the H taking two streams. And then once those, so today and then Friday. And so Monday, I'll probably do another stream where I'm just like cleaning up the Y and the T. And then I'll get everything and put it all up on the wall. And then after that, I have a design that I'd like to do for a forge, a coal forge. So we're going to do a little bit of welding and fabrication as opposed to our normal blacksmithing. So I'm actually kind of looking forward to that. I think it should be fun. I haven't done any welding on the stream, and so hopefully it goes pretty well. I need to get a ND filter for the anvil camera, so that way it doesn't, the light doesn't blow out the sensor on the camera. So I need to order that. But the wide camera, I should just be able to body block that one. You'll kind of see my back as I'm welding, and then the close-up camera will be, you know, where you can see the weld itself. I'm hoping that I can manage it. But we'll see how it goes. I need to move the table or the welding table over here into my little space area here. So that way, because my welder sits over there, and I need to have the cabling to come over here. So I'll probably have a little bit different shop setup for Wednesday and Friday probably. It might just be Friday. We might just do that on Friday. There's also a chance that I'll show you, well, I'll definitely show you some ways to cut sheet metal. We can use an angle grinder. We might use my Beverly shear. That's a giant scissors. And then there's a couple other ways that we can cut sheet metal. So we'll take a look at that on Friday probably. So I'm looking forward to that as well. But I think I want to do this project because not only am I not happy with my coal forge because it's really kind of small. I also want to be kind of a one-stop shop with my VODs and everything on like how to set up a blacksmith shop. You know, so I've done and my YouTube. So I've done a couple of videos on like beginner anvils and things like that. So I kind of want to show you guys a little bit how to make a simple coal forge. I haven't, or I probably won't, like I don't have the facilities to make another gas forge at the moment. And I kind of feel like I shouldn't encourage people to build gas forges when there are so many good ones that you can buy on Amazon and some other places. They're relatively cheap. I design and make my own gas forges, but I've been doing it for many years. My first one, I almost set the garage on fire. I mean, it's not. You really need to know what you're doing when you're building a gas forge. So I think I'm just gonna stick with building a coal forge and showing how that's done. It's a little bit safer. Yes, we definitely do not want to burn down the garage or any of you guys to burn down your garages. I do have my disclaimer on all my YouTube videos that I am a professional. You know, you probably shouldn't try this at least without supervision. And that's so that I don't get sued. But I really seriously would rather you guys not, injure yourselves or, cause property damage. So I will give you all the tips that that I can. But yeah, buy a gas forge. Don't build one. When I first started doing blacksmithing, there wasn't really a place where you could buy forges. Because when I started, it was kind of before Forged in Fire was like kind of a thing. And I really feel like Forged in Fire is one of the things that really popularized blacksmithing as like a hobby, and stuff, or something that people were actually interested in. So yeah, I kind of was forced to build my own forge, and as a result, I just kind of by default make my own. But you can buy one off of Amazon, and they're pretty good. I mean, do your homework. You know, don't buy one that has really bad reviews. But yeah, just buy one. They aren't that expensive. Just buy one. Run away. Hey, Bluesy. Welcome in. I am about to do another heat. I feel like my shop camera right now is really yellow for some reason. I think I gotta talk to my partner about why that is. Maybe I have it white balanced wrong. I don't know. I keep looking at the camera and I feel like I have yellow jaundice in my shop. I don't know what's happening. Let's straighten this out real fast. We're in that very end area, and I want to make sure that we don't stretch this in weird ways. And then I also need to cool down the punch a little bit. I should probably heat that back up. So I don't crack it. As it cools down like this, it is very easy to crack these edges because we're really starting to thin those out. So I really need to make sure that those guys stay really good and hot as we're stretching this out. Your shop is yellow, but the skin tone looks fairly correct. Is there just a lot of sun coming in? Oh, I didn't realize that. I don't know. Like, it's weird because, like, I feel like there is a lot of yellow in my shop because, like, this area is like really yellow, and then obviously my apron is like bright yellow, and you know I have a lot of yellowy wood, but I don't know. I feel like the entirety of the screen is a little on the yellow side. So maybe it's just not that I've never noticed that the shop is really yellow. Maybe it's just gonna make me paint, you know? Cool, steel can crack. Yes, steel can crack. If you hammer on your steel, like really thin steel, while it is cold, it will crack. So that's kind of something that I try and warn people against when you're doing like really skinny tapers and really thin walls on like a drifted hole. If you allow them to cool down too much, they will crack. And that is they call it cold shunts. I think I've talked about cold shunts on occasion before. But yeah, you got to be really careful and maintain that heat. This is the first time I've seen your shop look this golden. Yeah, I really feel like that is the case. And it's probably because the shop camera came with me to like the conference, right? And there are like my partner is like really good at using cameras. So when my partner is using the camera, they use different settings than the ones that they've set up for me because I just don't have a lot of time to sit there and like mess with all of the different buttons on the camera. So I use a couple buttons, but I don't use all of them that are available within the camera. And I don't know. I think He probably was messing with the settings again, and I'll have to ask to see if like he can fix it for me. It looks really yellow. Well, yeah, but it is okay. Anyway, your Clippy still makes me smile. All it needs is text balloon with hello, do you need help? Yes, Clippy is great. I like Clippy a lot. Is that what we need? I don't know if you guys can read that. I think it's too. It's definitely too small for me to read, but maybe you guys can. I don't know. Maybe I need a bigger Sharpie. I only have like this tiny little Sharpie, and it's like the little thin one. Maybe I should get a bigger one, and then I can rewrite it, and then you guys will be able to see it. Man, I was looking for that Sharpie for like a couple weeks ago. I was like looking for it and I couldn't find it anywhere. And then I was like looking for a center punch today so I could center punch those the two dots for the start of this hole that we're doing. And I found it and I'm like, where did this come from? Why is it in my basket? Maybe. So yeah, I think it's a little too thin for you guys to read. So maybe I should just get a bigger one. I'll get a bigger Sharpie and we'll try again. All right. Looks like we've got plenty of heat, so I am gonna do another. Take it over to the anvil. Yes, every time I look at that camera, it's so yellow. So yellow. Oops. My bad, I squeezed the test tube holder. Now I'm losing my heat. See if I can manage this. Maybe, maybe not. Roar. Whoops, I dropped the whole thing in the quench bucket. That is amazing. That is totally the thing that I would do. All right, we have this really like bent, but it's kind of cold, so I'm gonna heat this up and then we're gonna unbend it. I don't want to continue this whole, you can kind of see where it's already coming through. So on the next time I use the drift on this, it should go all the way through. But I want to make sure that this twist, or I take out this twist. But I need to heat it, otherwise I risk cracking it. All right. Let's see. This is called achy water. Ew. Gross. 1 second. Whoa. As I trip. Paper towels. Shop towels are great. All right. Shop towels. Okay. Cool. That works. Let's put this back in the holder. I really actually think that this is working out relatively well. I mean, I know that I have flipped the piece as well as the drift a lot, while working with this test tube holder, but honestly, I feel like that is an acceptable side effect of not hammering my hand. I would much rather it take a little bit longer and have a little bit of inconvenience and, you know, flying metal, as long as it's not flying too far, than hammering my hand. Because the bruises from hammering my hand they hurt. They hurt quite a bit. So once I get the drift all the way through and punch all the way through to the back side of that hole, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to flip the piece over and put the drift all the way, or start putting the drift through the other direction. So as it pops all the way through, we're going to flip it over and stick the drift in the other direction. That way it kind of makes, because there's a little bit of a U shape that's forming from the bends that we've had. So that'll kind of straighten it out a little bit. We'll get a little bit more even stretch. So that is the plan. And we will probably do, or like flip it each heat upside down so that we get that even stretch. And I'm going to check my clips real fast. And I'm glad I did, because it's been about 30 minutes. So I'm going to get everything. Yay! There we go. And I flipped my clips 3 times? Something like that. Ever had a milk shower? I had one earlier today. My milker main line sprung a leak. It's also the stainless line that has a rubber coupling to finish the bend, and that one popped. Ooh, that would be annoying, because I mean, as you know, as the milk shoots everywhere, it's waste. You know, obviously you can't fill gallons of milk with milk that sprays all over the area. You gotta plug that up as soon as possible. But I actually have seen some of that. There are like hose clamps, and they're like little pieces of like steel, like spring steel, and you kind of press them together, and they hold hoses in place. And I've had it where they've come loose on the, so my heater, or my central air conditioner and heater in my house, the lines for the water return for the lines, it got clogged up, so I had to unhook it from the machine and use a pipe cleaner down it. And so when I tried to put it back on, I didn't get it all the way on, and so it started spraying water. It was not pleasant. It was annoying indeed, but I have a very soft skin now. And you know what it is like. Yep, yep. Milk does make, good soft skin. All right, so we're going to take this out of the forge and we're going to straighten it up. And because right now it's really, really bendy. So we're going to be really gentle with this, because we don't want to like forge it down or anything. We just want to straighten it out. We got a little bit of heat left, so I think I'm going to do a little bit more here. You can see it's starting to shove up there. So I think one more heat will do it. Yeah, if you look at it this way, you can definitely see that like that little area is all shoved up and stuff. So on our next heat, it'll pop all the way through. Once that pops all the way through, like I said, we're going to turn it upside down and stick the drift through the other side. A little fluffy came in the garage door. So it's nice it's like early spring, so we've got lots and lots of dandelions everywhere, and so they're starting to do their little puff thing, and there's like floaty dandelion fluff all over the place in the air, and then one of the pieces just like floated in here. Got to be really careful with that because there is the ever so small chance that if it goes over towards the forge, the opening of the forge, it'll set it on fire. And then, if it floats even further, it could cause problems. So you got to watch that sort of thing. Make sure that, any ashes or, floating paper or anything like that, make sure that you know where it's going and that it puts itself out, or you put it out yourself before it causes issues. It had a pimple. It did have a pimple. All right. So it looks like we've got an ad going on the timer. So once that is up, I will do another heat. We've got plenty of heat for our next heat, and we should be able to pop that all the way through. It's starting to really strain there, and I haven't brought it back through. So it might be a little bit messy, but overall we should be able to clean it up by popping it or like flipping it over and bringing the drift through the other side. Didn't the heat of the forge make the fluff float up before it can catch fire? Usually it does, but occasionally it will catch. It's very, very unusual, but it can catch. So I err on the side of caution when it comes to things like that. Okay. Let's see if we can pop this pimple. And instead of popping the pimple, we drop the piece. Ugh. Unfortunately. All right. It's a lot bigger now. That pimple. All right. It's gonna take as long as it takes, and I think I'm gonna heat this back up just because I lost a lot of heat dropping it on the floor. I understand. Safety first. Most of the time. Most of the time it's safety first. And I will argue it should be safety first. But there are, those occasions where if safety is first, you just wouldn't work at all because, there's always a risk. So, yeah. Is this one of the cases when you need a third hand? I mean, it would be very, convenient to have a third hand. That way it wouldn't flip everywhere. But I mean, one of these days I'll make one. I keep saying that one of these days this, one of these days that. Sometimes I do it and sometimes I don't. I just need to actually bite the bullet and, you know, make a point to make all of these tools that I need. I admit I'm a farmer, safety third. Yeah. I tried very hard to be as safety first as I possibly can be because, um, you know, there are so many things that are dangerous about blacksmithing in general. But like you know, it's kind of like you have to be aware that things will happen to you, and you have to be willing to take that risk. By being safety conscious or conscious, by being aware of, you know, what you need to do to be safe, then it allows you to cut down on the amount of times that you burn yourself or cut yourself, or, you know, do the things that are, you know, the risk is all about. Caution. All right. In a little bit, I will do another heat. I'm a safety 1.4. Okay, let me reiterate. Safety pi. I mean, sure. Safety pi. 3.1415. I used to know like 10 digits of pi. I do not know that many now. We had to memorize a bunch of digits of pi when I was in math class in high school. But I mean, I graduated in '04, so it's been 21 years, and that's a long time. So you did a little adjustment to your punch. I did do a little bit of adjustment to my punch. So I made this guy. This is a drift, and I made it out of mild steel. Um, so if I hammer directly into, or you know, sometimes it starts bending on me because it's not a hardened steel. And part of the reason that I don't make these out of hardened steel is because as I drift them all the way through, they tend to get hot, and you can kind of see that black heat where this has already gone through. It's if this was a hardened steel, it would have lost its temper already. So I mean, you do if you want to do lots and lots of holes, you do probably want to use a tool steel one, but do be aware that it will take or the heat will take the temper off eventually. Um, so you'll get a little bit more use out of it, but not a lot more use out of it. So when this starts bending, I have been straightening it out. Yep. Okay. Let's do another heat. Let's pop this pimple for real. 3.141529 is usually good enough for calculating trajectories for rifles. Well, I mean, if it's good enough for trajectories of rifles, it should be good enough for most stuff. Maybe not like astrophysics and like, you know, the stuff that's like, you know, really, really important, but for me. All right, and we have gone all the way through. Whoops. Smoke. All right. So you can kind of see that we've ripped that right there. So next heat, I'm going to strain this out, and we are going to go this direction through. You can kind of see that rip right there. It's not all the way, but like it's enough. It's definitely enough. water. Man, this weekend while I was in Sedalia, I was drinking so much soda. When I got home, I was like, no more soda. So I've been drinking so much water over the past 3 days. It's kind of, I kind of feel like I'm making up for, not drinking enough water over the weekend. But I also know that when it comes to health, that's not quite how it works. So you can't really like make up for not doing, healthy things. It's just, you do the healthy thing when you can. Interesting. All right. Are we doing all right? I think we're back. I hope we're back. Oh my God, the dude showed up. Yeah. I think we're back now if we refresh. Okay, cool. I am back. I don't know. It just dipped for like just the littlest of seconds, just so that the dude shows up. So hopefully, it's not too bad. Theoretically, I should stabilize, and I hope, fingers crossed, we can get the last bit of our stream done. Well, hi, back. I thought you were Ray. Yes. I'm back, and I'm Ray. So, yeah. Sorry about that. I've been, like, my OBS and Twitch haven't been wanting to talk to each other very well today. When I did some speed checks to make sure that I would have enough internet speed to, have a stable stream, everything checked out. I am not sure. I think I need to maybe update my OBS just to make sure that I've got the latest client. There might be something going on there. I just don't know. So what was the call on the painted shepherd hook? The painted shepherd hook? I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understand. Painted shepherd hook. Did I say that I was going to make one? I could make a shepherd's hook if you guys want to see one. But yeah. Alright, I'm going to do another heat. Well, I got you guys. We're going to straighten this out just a little bit. Alright. Maybe I will do this real fast. There we go. Stuff's being dumb. Stay. Okay. So I have a shepherd's hook for birds that got bent, about half in thick round stock but painted. How could I correct that safely? Read back. It is bent. Oh, okay. I must have missed that. I'm sorry. I must have missed that in my chat. So if it is a half-inch round stock, which is what I'm interpreting that as, what it would be is, okay. So you should be able to cold bend it back into shape. If I were doing it here, I would try cold bending it over the anvil horn, right? Very slowly. Um, and I would not actually use a hammer unless I absolutely had to. So I would take it kind of like this way, and I would. So if the bend is this direction, I would put the end of the bend, and I would slowly kind of bend it back into shape over the horn of the anvil. So you could also do it over like a workbench or a table. I would, but like start at one end and do it very slowly. But yeah, careful that it's hot. Yeah, it's definitely hot on this side, so I'm being cautious on that. I don't want to burn myself. But yeah, if you slowly over like the edge of a bench or just start at one end and just like slowly go down the bend, and it should straighten out relatively. I mean, it's going to take a lot of effort, but because it's painted, I would try cold bending it first. And then if that doesn't take care of it, then you might want to get a plumber's torch and heat it up. You will have to repaint it at that point. But yeah, try cold bending it first. The stream died. Did it die again? Half-inch round stock, yeah. Another way that you could try and do it is if you have a vise, like I know I have my bench vise here, but you can do this on with a bench vise or with uh, a leg vise. You open it all the way and make sure that you're using jaw or something to protect the bar from the jaws of your vise. And so like it could be leather or some cloth or something, but like close the jaws over that bend, and it will, or slowly, and it will unbend. Um, so it's kind of like, what do you have that you can use to bend it back? Thank you much. Well, thank you, Ping, for those 100 bits. I appreciate that. I don't need to be paid to answer questions, but I do appreciate your donation. So yeah, like I said, it kind of depends on what types of tools that you have access to as to how I would go about doing that. Bending it, like I said, bending it over the corner of a bench might work. Using a vise would work beautifully. You know, there's other things. Yeah. Do you have an English wheel? Yes, English wheels would work absolutely gorgeously. An English wheel, it's for flattening, usually sheet, but also it works on stock, bar stock. But it's like two wheels that kind of, when you run a piece of material through it, they they just kind of roll together, and it'll flatten out anything that you throw through it. Well, I know that you know what an English wheel is, Lucy, but I don't know that everyone knows what an English wheel is. So. Or will it round that, or will it round flat stuff? Well, sometimes an English wheel, it depends on the wheels that are on the English wheel. Um, like a lot of people will use an English wheel to flatten out hammer marks when they're making armor, or when they're doing bowl forms. That you can, if you run it through, it depends on how tight the two wheels are together. Sometimes it will round them out, and sometimes it'll flatten it out. Like, it will always flatten out like your hammer marks, and that's why a lot of armorers use it. But I mean, you can, it depends on how tight the wheels are together as to like whether it will straighten it or round it. You can adjust it. Yep. I looked it up. Have seen it before, but no clue what it was. Yeah, it's often used to get rid of hammer marks. So when you are, so this is a piece of copper, and I started making a bowl out of this. It's like I barely started making a bowl out of it, but you can kind of see that there's like a lot of hammer marks and like lumps and stuff in this. If I were to take this over to an English wheel and run it through the wheels, it would come, or all of these little divots in here from the ball peen hammer. I use this ball peen hammer on it. Would come right out of that, and that would flatten it out a little bit so that it'll even out that round bowl shape. So one of these days we'll do that. I don't own an English wheel, but we can totally do some bowl raising at some point. I use it when I need to make a curved piece of metal. Yeah, I have a roller, or like a set of rollers. So they're like flat rollers, not an English wheel. That's in the cold shop in there. All right, let's do another heat. Oopsie. Struggle bus. All right, let's see. I'm going to do this a little bit because I need to get the slug out of there. The slug has not come out yet. And I keep dropping it, man. There we go. Now we can get that slug out of there. All right, that's great. So you can kind of see the slugs kind of in there, but we'll be able to get it out by running the drift through this direction anyway. All right. I keep telling you, grow a third hand. I mean, exactly. So there are tools called third hands, and there are several different designs of them, so that you can like hook it up to your anvil, and it works beautifully to be a third hand. So the one that I learned when I was learning to be a blacksmith goes in the pritchel hole, and it's like just a round bar, and it just bends over and kind of has a round D shape, and then it has a flat little area, and you stick it, there's like a really long bar, and you stick it in the pritchel hole, and it kind of holds your material in place. But that design would not work for what we're doing here because obviously we're using the pritchel hole. Oh, I have a third hand to solder, but I know there are bigger ones. Yeah, I also have a third hand to solder, and I did when I worked at the jewelry store. All of my jewelry, I put them in my third hand, and it made it so much easier to solder. I didn't have to solder on my solder pad; it was like up in the air and stuff. Made things so much easier. But there are much bigger third hands that you can design and make in a blacksmith shop as well. Blacksmith Dan, who is one of our regular viewers, has a design that it's basically it's like a chair almost, like the back of a chair, and it's on a spring, so he can step on this bar at the bottom, and it will it brings like the mini chair back down on top of the piece, and so then he hits it or hits it with his foot again, and it'll bring it up. So he's got that design in our Discord. So if anyone's actually looking for that design, it's there. I need to take a look at that and see about making one myself, I think. All right, let's do another heat. We got about 4 minutes. We're good to go. All right, we're gonna make sure that we do this upside down. And I want to put it in just like that. So we've got it all the way down. That time I did burn myself. That's strike one, guys. Theoretically, I should not get any other strikes because we don't have that much time left, but that was definitely strike one. All right. Okay, so we've got that slot all the way through. So next we need to straighten this out because we've got that bow shape going on. We got to make sure that we can straighten it all out and make sure it doesn't stretch weird. But yeah, we're gonna shove the whole drift all the way through that hole. Hole and hole. There's two different holes there. There's the WHOLE and the HOLL. Or no, HOLE. Rawr. You might be better off with a hold fast, but your anvil does not have the holes for a one. You might be able to make one like Blacksmith Dan's. Yeah, that's kind of what I was saying. Blacksmith Dan's got a really good design for one, and it's in my Discord. I just need to, spend some time and make it. He has used it on a stream, and I watched it. It's beautiful. It works so well. So now that we have our drift the tip of our drift all the way through and we've created that slot, now we have to pay close attention to the sides and make sure that they stay hot and ready to stretch. So we want to keep our drift relatively cool, but we also need to kind of walk that line because the colder that drift is, the more heat it's going to suck out of those cheeks. So we need to be very careful that we don't accidentally crack them. My memory card is full. How is my memory card full? I reformatted it. Strange. I wonder if that's because, okay, so my partner has a habit of making two cards. So I wonder if it was doubling up all of the clips onto one card. I don't know. Two hours of streams at 1080p. Well, normally I can do 1080p and I can get about 3 hours on one of my cards. I've done that in the past. I think that my partner changed the settings on my camera on me, and I think that's why I'm really yellow. I think that's why my card is full. So we'll see. We changed the card, I don't know. I think. Let me look. There might be a second card in there that I didn't format, and yeah. No, I don't know. I really don't know. It says my card is full, though. That's weird. It's alright, though. It's all right. Okay, let's do another heat. I've got the VOD, so we're good. Oh, come on. Now you're gonna fight me? The Forge wants to fight. Fight me. Okay, now that we've gotten that all nice and straight, I'm gonna take that over here. Now we're doing this on purpose. Okay, so we've started to stretch that area out really nicely. So we're going to turn this over and we're going to start stretching out this side a little bit further. So from now on, each heat we are going to flip this guy over just so that we can evenly stretch everything. So yeah. And we will at this point be dropping, or like I have been, or I'm dropping the drift deliberately because I need to get it out, and it's just going to drop through anyway. So we will be dropping the drift deliberately at this point. So we're getting there. We're getting there. So I think once this hole is all or is completed, I will probably wait to do the other hole until Friday. So we've got plenty of time to finish this hole, I think. Yeah, we've got about 30 minutes. We should be able to get a decent amount of this hole completed. And we will continue on this project on Friday. I just finished off my water. All right. Let's see. That guy can stay hot, I think. I think I'll try and pick it up with this guy from here on. That way it can kind of stay hot so that it won't suck the heat out of our piece, but I don't burn myself picking it back up. So yeah. Let's see. What else is going on? I mean, lots of stuff, and we've already discussed a lot of it. So yeah. Um. So this week, or like so next. Okay. So normally I make shorts every day. I have, or like for Monday through Friday, I have shorts that I post up on YouTube. And normally what I do is I make all 5 of them on Thursdays when I don't stream. So I take the time that I would stream and I make the shorts, right? And I usually make them from the VODs of the previous week. So Friday, Monday, and Wednesday, the day before. So I'm kind of debating whether I want to make shorts from the just all of the footage, not limiting myself to the VOD from the conference, or if I want to do both today's stream and the Friday stream. So I haven't decided yet. I don't know if you guys have any opinions. Do you want to see, more of the footage that I made or that I shot on Friday and Saturday, or are you, you just want to see the regular, shorts from both Friday and this VOD. If you guys have any opinions, let me know. Otherwise, I'll decide what I'm feeling, tomorrow when I'm editing my shorts. I am going to do another heat, though. Let's see. Before I pick this up, it's still not quite hot. But yeah, I'm going to set this up so it's a little bit easier. Before I pull the steel out. Okay. So you can kind of see now that that hole is starting to form. We're starting to get rid of all of that squareness, and we're starting to get to the round section of that drift. You can definitely see where those cheeks are starting to punch out, puff out, and create the hole. Alrighty, we can set things up. I have a brush. We're starting to get a pretty decent amount of scale on the anvil, so I'm going to clean that off while we're going so that it doesn't fly up at me. That's an interesting smell. So I live on the outskirts of a city, but I also back up, like my yard backs up onto a field. Now the farmer who used to own the field sold it to the city, and the city hasn't planted anything. But there is actually an alpaca farmer way like a mile down the road that direction, and I can smell it. I don't know how, but it's like I feel like I smell straw. So maybe like a feed truck came down the road or something with hay for the alpacas. It's kind of weird living this close to a city, and then but also this close to farms. I mean, it's beautiful for me because it only takes me about 15 minutes to go to the grocery store, but then also nobody complains that I'm a blacksmith. So, I don't get any noise violations or anything like that, but I can also buy groceries, really quickly. Um, but yeah, there's an alpaca farm down there, and occasionally, like the animals can get out. Like it's only happened like one time since I lived here, but it was strange. There was a pony, like a small horse pony, walking down the sidewalk across the street. Like I don't know, that was probably 3 years ago. It was really weird. But it's fun. I like farmers. So the drift is actually working relatively well, aside from flinging all over the place. Like I said, I'm pretty happy with how it's working in the test tube tongs. I was a little bit worried about them when I got them because they were a little bit loose, but I think overall I'm pretty happy with how things are working. All right, we've got plenty of heat, so we'll do another heat. Alpacas are cute. They are cute. They're kind of funny too. See, that would have been my hand, but it wasn't my hand. It was the test tube holder. I'm very grateful that it was the test tube holder and not my hand. So we've got a really nice circle there, so now we're going to work on this side. So yeah, I think that the alpaca farm, I think what they do is they shear them for their wool. But I've also heard, like, can't you milk alpaca? I'm not entirely sure about that. But neither their milk nor their meat is okay for human consumption in heaven. So if I had an alpaca, all I could do was shear them. Okay, so you can't drink their milk. See, I wasn't sure. I had heard something about alpaca milk at some point, but I just don't. And I mean, obviously, most mammals do lactate. I mean, that's part of being a mammal. But I wasn't sure if there was a way that you could sell it. Maybe even, or if it's not like for human consumption, maybe for like by animals, or like a zoo or something. I don't know. You can milk any mammal. You can milk women, but you shouldn't. Maybe you can. Maybe you can. I don't know. Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't. I had thought that I had heard about, but I mean, we also live near a zoo, so if they're milking the alpaca, it might just be for the zoo. I doubt it. I'm probably just crazy. But yes, they are wonderful for their wool. Um, it tends to be less scratchy than sheep wool. But there's also a lot of sheep around here that we shear. My grandpa used to have a whole bunch of sheep that he sheared every year and sent out the wool for profit. All right, let's do another heat. It's going to be taking a lot less time between heats as we continue to go through this, because we are stretching less and less material. It's also a little bit less important, the direction of the drift. So we've got a nice hole. We're going to keep flipping this over and over. Eventually we'll get to a point where we might be able to kind of hammer on the drift itself to because you can see here that the walls are thinner at that top than they are down here, and we might be able to move some of that material this direction. So we're going to take a look at that here in a second. I do not like sheep, but I am weird. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of cows. Like, I'm honestly afraid of cows. Cows are incredibly, like, mean, and they can trample you, and they're kind of dangerous if they don't like you specifically. I mean, I know bulls have a reputation, but it's not just the bulls. The female cows can be really mean too. They will charge you just as easily as a male cow will. When I was a kid, my grandfather had a farm, and I used to go there and play out in the pond in the field. And there was a whole bunch of cows out there, and they just decided one day that they didn't want me to play in their drinking water. And so they charged at me, and they chased me out of the pasture. It was terrifying. Cows can kill you just with their weight, you know? And they definitely can. Cows are scary. Like all my friends always make fun of me for telling them that I'm afraid of cows, but I mean, seriously, cows are scary. I'm out of water. That's all right. The stream is almost over. I'll get some water in a few. All right. Let's stretch some more material. All right, I need to stop for the moment because I'm starting to see some bending in a way that will promote a fracture in the edge. Once I get this drift out, maybe I'll be able to show you. Okay, whoops. So back here, along the edge here, you can kind of see a little bit of a fold starting. And that's kind of a twisted area. And so I need to actually go back and hammer that out because that is exactly how a fracture will start. So I need to be really careful with that. Let's see, how close to the horn are you? Getting there, not quite. And they jump and run like horses. They definitely do. Like I said, I'm terrified of them, and I think that's a valid fear to have. I mean, you know, if you've been around them anyway. Now, there are certain fears that I respect. Like, there's a reason that you should be afraid of, like, certain spiders, because they can be poisonous, and, snakes the same. Not every snake and every spider is poisonous, but there are some that, maybe being a little being a little afraid of them is a little healthy, right? Well, I think cows are right up there with that. So you can kind of tell from the drift, like the dark area on the drift, where it has stopped. So we are almost all the way through. There's just a little bit more stretching left to go on this drift before we reach that apex right here. It's kind of not, it's not much, and then we'll be able to shove it all the way through, and we will be done with that. So I am pretty thrilled. I think we'll see the drift fall all the way through the stream. All the way through. But yeah, because the walls are so thin, we're going to need to pay careful attention just to make sure that we don't allow our steel to get cold, because we are actually stretching these walls incredibly thin. We're getting there. We're getting there. If people laugh at you because you are afraid of cows, just ask them if they would like to be in a herd of wildebeest or buffaloes. I mean, yeah, they're not that much smaller than buffaloes or wildebeest. I mean, and you watch the movie The Lion King, and I mean, as a kid, I definitely, would not want it or would not have wanted to be not Scar, Mufasa in that movie, you know? Just one can harm you quite a bit. So yeah, we are almost at the apex. I'm really excited. I want to see this drift fall all the way through. Exciting, exciting. Let's do another heat. Like I said, these guys are going to be a little bit quicker than normal because we're stopping when it's a lot colder because those skinny areas are what's actually losing the heat the fastest. We got to make sure that we don't crack them. But yeah, we got a good hole going there, and it is definitely larger than the size of the piece of steel. Raw. Slowly, slowly. Squirrel attacks are rare, but they do happen. See, I believe you, King. I've seen a squirrel attack. Um, when I was a kid, I was absolutely obsessed with squirrels. I loved them. I wanted to pet them and like take them home and make them into my pets, right? Um, but obviously, they're wild animals and they have their own opinions on things. And so my mom had to watch me so closely because I used to chase squirrels as a child, and a squirrel will only run for so long before it just like turns around and wants to attack you. So I almost got attacked by a few different squirrels. Some cows are large or larger than them. Ever heard of Belgishi Whitblue? It is a type of very muscular cow bred for the meat big. Yeah, I mean, I imagine there are definitely cows that are bred specifically for meat and then specifically for their hides. Both of them are relatively large because they want as much product as possible. But yeah, cows, scary things. Squirrels can be scary too, but not quite as scary. But I mean, your squirrels, they can carry rabies, you know. So you got to be careful with those. Make sure that if you get bit, you go to the hospital and make sure that you don't get any like weird infections and stuff. Belgian white blue. Okay, that makes sense. It sounded like when I read it out, it kind of sounded like that might actually be like the translation. All right, let's do another one. One or two more heats. Well, it'll probably be like 4 or 5 heats, knowing me, because All right. Look at that. We've made it to the apex. We just need to stretch it a little bit further and it'll go all the way through. That's exciting. So maybe I was right. Maybe it will be 1 or 2 more heats. But you can definitely tell that hole is bigger than the diameter of this piece of steel. So I'm pretty thrilled by that. Raw. And that guy is hot now. Squirrels are scary. I do not like them, but I have a few cats that protect me. Yeah, I have a cat that likes to try and protect me, but I'm always afraid because, like, my cat doesn't have front claws, right? So he's got back claws and teeth, but it's like, I feel like if they don't have front claws, then they probably shouldn't be outdoors because they can't really defend themselves quite as well as if they had those front claws. So my Tungsten, he thinks he's a big bully and he like attacks my dog and stuff, but I would be very afraid to pit him against a squirrel, even though he's so much bigger than the squirrel. All right, let's do a couple more heats. We got about 2 minutes before our next ad. I think we can manage it. We're getting really close to done. And there you have it. Awesome! It went all the way through. Yay! All the way through. All right, I'm going to do one more heat and we'll go through the opposite direction just to make sure that it can go all the way through. And then from there, I'm going to even up those two walls because they're thicker on one end than the other end. I stream squirrels and find them hilarious. Put in a pond recently and one went in head first into the pond chasing another squirrel. But they are similar. Yeah. You put in a pond. That's awesome. So we have squirrels in my parents' backyard, and when in my hometown. So like I don't live anywhere near my parents' hometown. We live probably 4 hours away, 4.5 hours away. Anyway, when I was growing up, there was a black squirrel in our yard, and it was there year after year after year. And one year, my parents put up a pool, like an above ground pool, and it accidentally like jumped in the pool and it couldn't get out. So eventually, my dad came out and it was still it was moving around, so it wasn't dead yet. But my dad got the pool skimmer and got it out and set it down on the deck, and it was so exhausted. The poor thing was like laying there for like 2 hours just trying to rest. I felt so bad for it. Finnish, Dutch, Afrikaner, English, all of those are of the same language group. Yeah. But yeah, he was so tired, and I felt really bad for him. He was able to, once he finished resting up, he was able to go back up in the tree. He never went anywhere near that pool again, though. All right. Let's do one more heat. Once this ad ends, it says there is an ad starting soon. So we'll wait for that ad. Then we'll do one more heat where we take the whole drift all the way through that hole, and then we'll kind of see about using the horn of the anvil to kind of straighten out the walls of that hole. I put rock and stick in so anything could get out, even bugs. Yeah, that makes sense. That's actually a really good idea. That way we don't have any drowning animals in the pond. So I think my parents eventually ended up putting like a pool ladder that had steps on both sides of, like, so it was like a triangular ladder and there was steps on both sides. That way any animals that got in there could climb their way out as well. And I think that's actually a pretty good idea. You know, if you've got a pool that animals could, you know, get into, find a way to like make sure that they can get back out. I feel like that's the decent thing to do. All right. So we've got one, maybe two more heats left. So if you guys have any ideas for who you would like to raid, let me know. Otherwise, I will, you know, come up with somebody. We'll see who is around and streaming. I really like to raid Johnson, but he's been streaming a lot earlier recently, so we haven't been able to catch him. Lately we've been raiding off to Lone Mountain Knife, and he's been making some really good Damascus steel knives. That's been a really fun thing to watch. I have them in my pea lake. The runoff of my stables goes into a pond. Oh, okay, that makes sense. All right, let's do another heat. This might be our last heat. I am not entirely sure. It could very well be, though. All right. The drift went all the way through. Yay! All right. We've lost a lot of heat, so I think I'm going to do one more heat just so that we can go over here to the Horn of the Anvil and kind of straighten out, make sure the walls of that hole are, you know, even a little bit. We'll move some of that material over that way. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Pretty decent. And the drift survived. Welcome in, Dirty. Johnson tends to stream before noonish now. Yeah. Cool. A drippy drift. Or is that a dropped drift? It is a dropped drift. So we were able to stretch that hole so big that the drift dropped all the way through, which was exactly what we were trying to get it to do. That way we drifted a hole that was bigger than the diameter, or a hole with the diameter bigger than the width of our stock. And I think that's really cool that you can get metal stretched that way. So we're gonna straighten it out, finesse it just a little bit, and then we will raid off. So we've got about one more heat left for RH. And then we will start up again on Friday. We're going to be doing the same thing, drifting the other leg of the H that goes up on the raised smithy sign. And then Monday, we're going to kind of finish up all of our projects, make sure that our Y and our T are acceptable to put up on the wall. So, yeah. Stretch holes are not always a good thing. I mean, it depends on what type of hole we're stretching. I will say that. You are right, Bluesy. Not every hole needs to be stretched. All right. I'm thinking about ear holes. Sometimes, you know, people like to stretch their ear holes quite a lot. I'm sorry, I have an old and dirty mind. Yeah, we'll leave it at that. All right, we're going to do one last heat. so that we can kind of straighten out the walls of that hole. And before I do that, I'm going to grab my other hammer. We've been using my my cold metal hammer just so that we can make sure that if any chips come off of it, that it's all right and we're not destroying our forging hammer. But now we're going to use the forging hammer to kind of straighten everything out and finesse it a little bit. So I'm going to put all of these away, and then we'll do that last heat. All right, guys, one more heat. Now these are really gentle hammer blows. Oh, that one turned a little bit too flat. It'll be all right though. Apparently the nose of my anvil is a little flatter than I thought it was. All right, so that'll be our last heat. We'll need a little bit more finessing on this guy, but overall I'm pretty happy with that hole. So thank you all for joining me today. I can highly recommend you having a dirty mind. A dirty mind is a joy forever. I like to try and keep the stream PG. All right, thank you guys so much for joining me on today in the shop. Have a lovely rest of your day. If I can get my outro to go, that would be great. Laggy, laggy. Oh, come on. It wants to tell me no. Come on. If I do that, it's probably not going to do it. Thank you for showing the joys of yellow. Exactly. All right. Well, it's not going to, it does not want to play my outro. So I think I'm sorry, guys. I will fix this. All is available to raid. Hey, look, it actually went. Is it squished? For real? I don't know. We are gonna raid Lone Mountain. If I can make it work. Maybe I can make it work, maybe I can't make it work. There we go. Lag. It's all the lag. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. Have a wonderful rest of your day.